I am not sure. Let's see. It looks like, yes, it should be showing up on LinkedIn. It should also be showing up on YouTube. So I am going to just kind of jump right in and then we'll see if this actually worked.
Awesome.
But everyone, welcome to this special episode of Creatively Speaking Live. This is something new for Leanna, and who else better to call on than my friend, the media expert, the go live expert, and my friend Beth Nydick. So Beth, I'm so thankful that you are willing to test this out with me on
Anything.
at 7 p.m. on a Thursday night.
I'm
Um,
good. I just ordered sushi. It'll be here in like half an hour. We're all
that's
good.
that's
And
perfect.
I adore you. And I think that what the conversation you want to have about podcasting and authors is such an important piece of the author ecosystem, right? So many people that we speak to, because I talk to a lot of authors all the time, they're just focused on the book
Yeah.
and launching the book. And it's got to be bigger than that. And that's where I come in, is I get to really be able to teach those authors how to be on podcasting, how to use it for more sales, and then how to use their IP, the text they've already created, to go back on those episodes, go back on the podcast, and really tell stories that will really actually sell books.
Yeah, and it's all strategy, right? Like, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
the thing is like if you're going to put in an hour of your time into something, you want to be able to leverage that. And you are the queen of that. So I'm going to introduce you.
Okay, good.
So everyone, this is my friend Beth Nydick. She is a sought after media strategist, podcast expert, and authority in visibility marketing. She helps experts turn 45-minute podcast interviews into consistent 10K paydays. Who does not want that? She is a former TV producer and PR firm owner, and she really truly has mastered the art of leveraging media exposure to drive real business results.
Hell
Now,
yeah.
yeah, if you've been following Creatively Speaking for a while, like we are now in our fourth season, but I actually had Beth on way back years ago with our season
Years.
one. It wasn't even a podcast at that time. It was literally just some recordings because Beth, what she had done at that point in her life, she had created a cookbook. And in that episode, it is season one, episode five, relationships, making the ask and navigating the process. This
Yeah.
episode with Beth, it was gold because she talked about how she got her agent, how she found a book writing partner, how
Yep.
she then went into her sales pitch with the editorial team, and how she made that book happen. And fast forward to now, she's kind of doubling down on her previous life experience in
Hmm.
media. And so what I find fascinating with Beth is this book, it was published like what, 7 years ago, maybe almost,
2017.
yeah,
Yeah.
almost 8 years ago. And she is still getting publicity for this book. And I tell my clients, I'm like, you have got to do the same thing. So that
Oh
is why
yeah.
we are here today. We are going to pick your brain, and so you can tell our authors, what, why, and how they should be leveraging these important conversations that they're having online.
It's so important, Leanna. And like, I always like to tell the truth, but I always to be transparent. We just looked up my cookbook and it is still selling.
Yes.
At like and I'm like 51 in gourmet
Yeah.
books. Like that's ridiculous. Right. And I say that to, like, yes, pat us on the shoulder because Leanna designed my book also. But also to talk about, like, it's not a one and done. It's not like, okay, here's the launch and then I'm done. It's like, this is a perpetual product that you are hawking for the rest of your life, because it is your credibility marker. It is where everything stems from. And too often the line of sight is too small when it comes to authors. They're looking at their next one, because having a launch strategy, a writing strategy, there's got to be the visibility strategy in there too.
Yeah. And they're putting, like, we work with a lot of self-published authors now. I mean,
Mhm.
we have traditional published authors just like yourself that we've worked with in a different capacity, but self-publishing, you're putting so much time, energy, and money into
Oh,
this
so
legacy
much.
of yours. And if you're going to hire a publicist, if you're going to put that time and energy into the promotion of the product, you need to think beyond just that 45 minutes and how you can keep using that.
Yeah.
And also to have an idea of what you're going to talk about when you're on these shows and how you want to sort of position your business, because the book is just one facet of
Right.
of what you create as an author. And most authors have either a personal brand or they have other things. So there's all these
Something.
little ways that you can leverage this content, so I'll say a lot of our clients, they've got the as seen in strip. You've seen them on the not Today Show, but like on
Some of
CNN
them.
or on different media outlets. So what are different ways that people can start to think about not only going back and using that old content that they have, but then making a plan for new content and how they move forward.
We always start with, what do you want to be known for? Like, what are those things that you always say, you always talk about, and how can we piggyback off of that? Because just having a book or having your personal brand, or having a product or whatever it is, there needs to be something attached that makes me feel something, right?
Yeah.
It's got to make me understand you, understand myself. I would say it's got to inspire, empower, or educate, but it's got to make me move. It's got to make me feel like you are my person. I have to go read that. Like, think about the books that, Leanna, that you're reading or that the audience is reading. What made you go find that book? What made you, right? Somebody told you, but what about it made you feel something? And that's where I want people to start, is like, what are you communicating about the book? Because if this was a book, here's my book, go buy it. Who the F cares?
Yeah.
Nobody. Right. But if it's like, this is going to change your life in XYZ, this little thing is going to give you energy and let you sleep through the night and not have hot sweats and not have all that, right? Then I'm going to tell my friends about it. And that's what we want your book to be, is a topic of conversation when you're not in the room. So when we think about leveraging it, it's thinking about having those conversations. Where are you having those conversations, and how can you continue to have them?
Yeah, I think that that makes so much sense. I also, in interviewing a lot of people for the podcast, what really resonates, it seems, even with our guests and when they speak to our audience, is that personal part of everything. Like
Yeah.
maybe, especially since look, we deal with a lot of cookbook clients, and we're talking a lot with them specifically. And a lot of them have a blog, they have
Yeah.
a audience, they've already connected and made these relationships with them online. And now these podcasts gives them even more insight into how they got to where they are, which is so fascinating,
Yeah.
because the book is literally just a piece of that puzzle. And um but it's also, when we do these interviews, you want them to find ways to continue to use it. And like, what do you usually suggest to people? Like, what seems to end up being like where people stop in utilizing their media?
They don't utilize it at all, right?
Yeah.
If it's social media, they put it on their story once, or they forget about it, or they post about it once. But the posts are usually, I'm so honored to be on Leanna's. Again, why should I care?
Yeah.
Right? They're not using the content. If I'm on so I'm going to be on this interview. This interview, I've said things that I can go take and use as video assets or audio assets on what I'm doing. They don't think about this interview as content.
Yeah.
And the messaging that you're saying on the interview is just as important as what you're doing with the content before or afterwards. Because you and I have listened to, and everyone listening, I know you have, boring interviews.
Yeah.
Interviews that you're like 3 minutes in, you're like, I'm out. So you have to think about, what is that hook, that conflict, that journey, that resolution. That's the framework that I use for when I tell my stories and when I teach my clients how to use stories on podcasts. So you keep the attention of the audience that's listening. And then if you can keep that audience attention, then you can keep your audience's attention as well. But the podcast interview, or any interview, is really the beginning of a conversation, and most people see it as the end.
Ah, can you talk a little bit more about that? Can you just talk a little bit more about that? Because I
Yeah,
find that
totally.
fascinating.
Let's talk about, uh if I had more time before this interview, because
Yes.
we did this very last minute,
Yeah.
I would have gone on my socials and told people about it. I would have sent them an email. Hey, what do you want to know?
Mm.
What should I ask Leanna? What should Leanna ask me? It's not just about this
Ah,
conversation between us, because maybe my audience has been following you because you're my friend. I share about you all the time, right? Maybe they have questions that they want me to ask you, because it's about the two of us creating the opportunity for both of us to be seen more, right? And then during the interview, which we should do right now,
okay.
just
What are
smile,
we going? What are we
right?
gonna
We're,
do?
we're just smile. We'll just
Okay.
smile, right? And then I can use that photo tomorrow and be like, last night, you have to go listen. We did this amazing late night interview, XYZ, go listen to it. Like tease that they should go find out about it.
Yes.
And then for the next couple days, I can be using it in my emails, if I'm in communities, if I'm on a stage, if I go to a networking. Like, why aren't I talking about what I'm doing in my business to promote it? I'm just talking about my business. And when you meet people in person or like this, they don't really care unless it affects them.
No less
So
of a
how can we have
yeah.
that conversation where it affects them and we can continue to use
Yeah, that's so smart. Just use that little shift. It makes so much even on my side, like especially like I've interviewed some high profile people. Hey, what do you want me to ask them? And that
Yeah.
also like that makes the interview even better. But being the interviewee or the person, the guest,
Interviewer,
yeah,
right?
interview at the person
Best.
that I'm the interviewee.
Me. Okay.
But if you're that person and you know you're going to be doing a media blitz, it's kind of like, hey, I'm going to be on TV. I'm going to be on this podcast. Tell me what you want to know. People keep asking me about whether it's your cookbook or this or how you did. What do
Oh
you
my
want me to
God.
talk about? Like
Yeah.
what kind of things do you want to know? Because I can make sure that I address those when I have the interview. That is so smart because you're warming them up for that
Oh,
conversation.
it's that pre-buzz. The worst thing for me is when I see somebody there, and we have a friend that just did this, and it made me crazy. They were like, "Hey, I was just on this LA channel, this LA show," and I was like, "Where was the 2 days before you got there? The what you were wearing, right?
Yeah.
The poll, what should I wear? The getting in the Uber. I'm so excited, I'm gonna throw up. Like, where is that personal side of it? So they can be like, I'm rooting for Beth to succeed."
Yeah.
Because again, they care about the product, but they really care about the behind the scenes of how you created it or what you're doing with it. How did you come up with that recipe? How about if I book next time I book I do WPIX. Next time I book WPIX, why not go on my channels a week before and be like, what cocktails do you want me to make? So you're bringing them into the conversation. And then this is a huge miss, is that people will do this interview and then never talk to you again. They won't reach out, right? They
Yeah.
won't, they
Yeah.
don't, they don't even promote it.
Yeah.
I'm currently working with some high profile people. It amazes me how people are on their platforms, share it once and move on. It's such a miss.
Yeah, like I have noticed that too. We've been on several really great podcasts, and what's kind of cool is obviously like if somebody does listen and then it resonates with them because I've had people reach out. Like it's interesting
Right.
too. Like we've had clients that have been on TV, and then that has prompted other people to obviously buy the book, but maybe they weren't interested in um, the recipes per se, but they were interested in how did she do this cookbook? And then they get the
Yeah.
book and then they see our name is in it. I've had people, contact us for all of that, but it's also too just like um, leveraging that that visibility that you're
Mm-hmm.
getting and sharing it and in different ways
Oh,
just
yeah.
like even for her she didn't know that came to me, you know what I mean, like she didn't know that
Right.
three people bought the cookbook because a friend of that person bought the cookbook, was like, oh my gosh, you should totally do a cookbook like this. And then she bought a copy of it. And then they bought another copy as a gift. And then they called me to see about a cookbook. But like, and so I
Amazing.
told that client because that's important for them to know too. They're looking at, they can see numbers on their websites, they can see the traction, but then they're
Yeah.
not even they have the episode, they show it once, you see the replay, and then they don't really utilize it
Right.
anymore.
It's about the thing, right? It's
Yeah.
about the book. And it's actually not. It's about how people feel by reading the book,
Yeah.
making the recipes, right? One of the things that we did early on in getting more visibility for the book is we did like a cocktail showdown, right?
Mm.
And I was judging cocktail competitions, which is like the craziest thing.
That's awesome.
Oh,
Yeah.
and I'm not a good
I was
drinker,
just saying.
so I could have like a little bit uh back then, the straw kind of thing. But we were doing all of these things around cocktails to just up level our own personal brand visibility, because then when you looked into who I was, oh, she has a cocktail book,
Yeah.
instead of being so forward facing always with the book, because nobody wants to like be hit over the head about buying my thing. But if you're interested in what I'm doing, you will then go buy my thing more often than not. And I think that's one of the reasons that the book is still selling, is because we were in some gift guides,
Yeah.
right? I'm still doing the stuff on the back end. I'm not really talking about it, but I'm still doing the back end because the credibility of the book brings me to do the other things I'm doing in my business. And notice, people, I think you've noticed, hopefully this audience is listening, it's a cocktail cookbook, and I do visibility.
Yeah.
They're not connected. They're connected through who I am, and what I like to do, right? And that's why we really started doing the book, is because I want to drink some healthy cocktails. It wasn't about like I need to be a cookbook author.
Yeah. And what's also interesting too is you're very strategic about the placement of it. So you
Yeah.
reach out, you reach out for those different media hits throughout the year that
Hmm.
will be good. Maybe it's holiday, maybe it's Valentine's Day, maybe
Oh
it's
yeah.
summer cocktails. Like, so you're strategically bringing that back up, like you said, to some of the local TV stations for them to
Oh yeah.
bring it up. So how does somebody like really prepare to um, go into their next interview and um, so that they are utilizing it the right way?
Well, the first thing is knowing what you're going to say. If you are going to go on an interview and are not media prepped, meaning like you haven't been media trained, you don't know what you're doing, you need to practice what you're going to say. Ask your partner, your friends, like, do I talk in tangents? Like, if I tell a story, which way does it go?
Mm,
People think that celebrities just show up on the Good Morning America and just tell stories. No, they've been practicing their lines, right? So the first thing is really understand what you're going to say and how that is going to connect to an audience to make them feel something. Because if you're going to use that content later and it's kind of boring and blah, it's not going to get you anywhere. The second thing is really understanding the audiences you want to talk to. And I don't mean I want to talk to moms. There's a million, right? I want to talk to moms who live on the East Coast that drive Audis, right? Where is that mom watching, reading, and listening to? What groups is that mom in? What is she doing on a Thursday night if she doesn't have little kids or she's trying to escape the house, right? What are the things that she's doing? We did a lot of like interior design stores. We would set up like a little drink. They would bring us in to do like a little drink area, and they would do an open house. We sold more books in little boutique stores. Probably not say more than anything else, but we sold a lot. Like we bought books and we sold a lot of them in the stores by doing
yeah.
it that way. So real, and that's what leverage and amplification. It's not just social media and talking to your audience. It's those in-person events. And then the third one, which is my favorite, is television. That is forever. The credibility it brings you is forever. And around all of this is the social media piece, is the email marketing piece. It is bringing your audience along for the ride so they can root for you and tell their friends.
Yeah. And when it comes to this, make 10K use in your next,
Yeah.
with your next episode, like
Hmm.
what does that look like, especially for, I think it's different for everyone, right? Like
It is.
it's definitely a play on words there, but it is something that, whether it's 10K, whether it's more traffic to your site,
Yeah.
whichever, because it's not necessarily just always about the book, right? It could be ad revenue, it could be more signups on your newsletter, like just talk about that piece and what that
Yeah.
truly means for
There's
people.
two, there's a couple different ways depending on what you're doing. Like I have a client who, what we did is we took her last two podcasts or three podcasts and sent emails to everyone she had spoken to in the last month that didn't sign up for her services, and was like, hey, Leanna, just thinking about you, thought that you might like this interview. Let me know what you think. That resulted in $14,000 in sales within a week,
Wow.
right? I was on a podcast this last summer, and I got DMs from people saying, I just listened to your podcast episode. I really liked what you said. I'd love to talk to you. Right. And that's what we want. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things is like the techniques that I teach within my program, the Mike to Millions, is how to make an audience talk back to you in that way. But it's using that content and showing up in a way that you are that person so people can connect to you emotionally, understand that you are the solution to their problem, and then using it for you. Right? Like you said, if people are listening, they're going to go find out who I am and get into my email list or go buy my XY and buy my glasses or my podcast or my book or whatever it is. It's a way to get your audience to talk back to you and then use it strategically in your lead gen and in your sales.
I love it. You're always full of such great information. I
I
really,
appreciate
it's one of
that.
these things, you and I've known each other for how many years did you
Oh my
say
God.
today, earlier today? Like,
I don't know. I think it was 2008.
yeah, like it's true that we
A
were
long
like
time.
online friends before online
My
friends.
first friend. You
Yeah,
were
like it
my
was,
first digital friend.
yeah, and you live right across, the river,
Yeah.
across Manhattan and through the woods, just from me. But it's also like these types of, you know, relationships that can also help with your visibility and tapping into people
Oh
that,
yeah.
your network and reaching different audiences that way. So I think people need to realize that it's not just going on for a certain amount of time and then like set it and forget it. It's looking through all of your connections, seeing who can help you amplify for
Yeah.
launches and who can get you in different places. Some people, and once you have those connections, it's like keep tapping into them, figure out what you can take of that relationship and make it something. Just like you said, you have a relationship with the local television station, so
Yeah.
that if you need a bump or you want some sort of visibility,
Now I'm
you
like
can reach.
itching for
Yeah,
it.
yeah, you
now,
can
like
reach
now I need
out
to go pick
and
Valentine's Day again.
yeah.
But what it makes me think about is like a couple of things. Number one of the things is like what we're always thinking about online. It's that personal interaction. No matter where I go, I bring a book with me.
Ah,
There's always a book in my car. There's always a book. I'm thinking who like I can tell a story. Oh, I went to an event. It was with this girl named Jen Scalia and
oh,
Selena
remember her?
Sue,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And I gave Selena a book.
Yeah.
I wanted her to remember
I
me.
remember I was there, Beth.
Yes, you were. Oh my God.
Oh my God, that just shows. Like your husband drove in from
Yes, to give me a book.
to bring you those books.
That's amazing that you remember that.
Totally
Yeah,
remember
right.
because it was
But
so smart. This is another person who is a part of her job is visibility and
yeah,
relationships, and it's like understanding that this is something else also that people will remember you by.
yeah. That Beth created that cookbook, right? And
Yeah.
that's what you kind of want. It's that we always look to online, but it's those personal relationships. And the other side of that is I want to talk a little bit about launching because you mentioned it.
Yeah.
It's that what's that the launch? I feel like authors are always looking for the launch of their book of how many sales they're getting.
Yeah.
Well, what's the pre-launch plan? Why are you not on every platform you can be on talking about how your book is coming out in March?
Yeah.
Right? So often I'll get emails or call DMs. My book comes out in 4 weeks. Well, like, what should I be doing? I'm like, well, you should have done something 4 months ago.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we're not starting when it comes out. We're starting when we get the book deal. And we're
Hmm.
telling our audience, and every place we go, I'm writing a book. I have a deal. It's coming out in March. It's coming out in like I want you to be sick of yourself that it's coming out in March. But before it does come out, you're doing everything you can to be on as many audience in front of as many audiences as you can to get the book out there. And then you're continuing those relationships. I'm going to be on a podcast tomorrow. I was on that podcast last March, and I'm going to be on the podcast again next March. Right? It's the continuous cycle, and I don't want people to be like, "Oh, it's so much. It's a lot." It's not. If you're pinpointing this, pick 5 to 6 people that you are going to be on their platforms every year,
Mm.
so that you know that you have this basis, and then you can build up to there. Right? Being on 12 stages, podcast or stages or communities a year, that's one a month. You can do that. Talking about what the book is about, not about the book.
Yeah. And one of the other things too that I think a lot of our type of client doesn't do enough, especially if they have done the work to get their book into stores. So we
Right.
have self-published authors that are in stores, they're in Barnes
Mhm.
and Noble, and that's awesome. But then I think those authors in particular should really also then be telling people where to go to get their book. And it's not just Amazon. Amazon, yes,
No.
is great. Tell them, go into the stores, go ask for my book. You go into, because
Yeah.
if you've worked so hard to get it into mainstream media or mainstream, bookstores,
USA. Yeah.
I mean, that
I
is
have to
something you need
tell
to
you the worst
leverage that
story.
as well. And you can use those podcasts, those episodes to say, hey,
Yeah.
yes, you can get on the Amazon, but what I would love for you to
Oh, I
do
do.
is go into the bookstore.
Yeah, I do that all the time. Like you can get on Amazon, but if you have a small town bookstore near you, please go in, tell them to order it. They can order it for you. Let's support bookstores. So
Yeah.
I'm in a bookstore probably right after the book comes out, and and it's a room full of people. Like 100 people in the room, and we're talking about it, and we get to the end, and I say in the bookstore, I say, go get it on Amazon.
Oh.
Oh, my
It's like,
co-author was like,
please
"What
don't.
the?" And I was like, "No, no, 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 I didn't mean that." I was like, "Oh my god." Right, but I was so conditioned to saying it because I first of all I was exhausted. It was a very long day, but like I know what I'm saying. I know what my scripts are. I know what I'm going to say. And I was like, but I was saying then bookstore, but I said Amazon first in the bookstore. That was a good one.
Yeah, I think that's a default for everyone. It's like go to Amazon, go to Amazon. So, but Beth, thank you so much for helping me
Hmm,
break the bubble when it comes to a
of course.
live
She broke her cherry,
episode.
ladies.
I did it. I'm so excited, and I'm glad it was with you,
Me
my dear
too.
friend.
I
But
love
tell
you.
everyone where they can find you. You have a lot of exciting things going on right now,
I
and I want
do.
people to experience your magic.
Oh, I appreciate that so much. So go to my Instagram page. It's at Beth Nydick. I'm like, where is it? It's right here.
Yeah.
Go to like it and then go to the link in bio. There's a couple options there for you. I do have a class coming out next Wednesday. The 3 shifts you need to make it 10K from your next podcast appearance. I'd love to see you there.
Perfect. All right, Beth, have a great night.
You
And,
too. Gonna go
I'll
eat
see
my
you
sushi.
online. Yeah,
I'll
I'll
see you
see you.
tomorrow. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Okay, was that even live?
I
Like,
don't know how to tell.